Hello everybody. Hopefully this will be a short video, but what I want to show you is what we call absolute positioning in CSS. I'll show you what I mean here. Go ahead and right click on your CSS folder and choose new file, and then let's just name it absolute positioning.html. That's a big long name, but we can figure it out. Absolute positioning.html. Okay, I think I got that right. And over here, I'm going to just rearrange some things. And over here, let's go ahead and put in our boilerplate code. So we'll do the HTML5 trick, and I'll set the title to absolute positioning. So I have to type it again, and so do you. Let's go ahead and indent the head and body elements like we've been doing. And then here inside the body element, we're going to just put 3 divs inside of here. So go ahead and add a div like that. And then for the content, you can just make it say div 1. Okay, and then I'm going to actually duplicate this line down to make the other 2 divs. So remember that trick, it's Alt-Shift down arrow, and that will duplicate the line that your cursor's on. Okay, or you can type those in if you want, but we do need to change the content for the second div to say div 2, and then the third one should say div 3. Okay, all right, one more thing in the HTML code, we want to add an ID to div 2 here. So add an ID attribute to div 2, and let's just call it, we can pick our own IDs, let's call it D2, short for div 2. Okay, good. Now we're going to add some CSS code. So go back up to the head element and put your cursor right underneath the title element and add a style element. So type in style and hit enter, and then hit enter again to split the style tags apart. And we want to be able to see those divs. So I think what we're going to do right here is we'll target the div elements on the page with a type selector. So the rule set is going to start off looking like this. Div, there's our selector, and then the curly braces, and then split those curly braces apart. And we want to set a border on all the div elements. So I'm going to set the border property, border colon, and then 1px space solid space, let's go with black. Okay, so that's how we can set the border width, the border style, and the border color all in one rule there. And let's just give some padding to those divs too. So set the padding to 12px. Okay, now we're almost ready to start talking about the main topic here. Let's check this out on the page. So save your changes and then open this up in the browser. Okay, and here's what it looks like. So you can see we've got the borders around all of our divs, and you can see that divs are block elements, so they're going to stretch out across to take up a whole line, and so that's why they're stacking vertically like that. That's the behavior of block level elements. Alrighty, so now what we want to do is target the second div here so I can show you absolute positioning here. That's why I gave that an ID attribute, so we could target it with an ID selector. So here underneath that first rule set, let's create another rule set that uses an ID selector. So that's hashtag, and we're going to target the element that has the ID of D2. So there's our selector, hashtag D2, and then your curly braces, and then hit enter to split the curlies apart. Okay, now finally, 4 minutes into the video, and we can start talking about the topic that I want to talk about, which is the position property. So here we want to set the position property. Now these are the choices that you have. We're not going to talk about all of these. The default one is static. So if you never set the position property for your elements, it's going to default to static. And you know what that does, because that determines how block level and inline elements are laid out. And you already know how that works. But what we're going to talk about here is the absolute position. Okay, and then put my semicolon right there. Once you set the position to absolute, it allows you to control the absolute positioning of the element. I'll show you what I mean here. Now that I've set the position to absolute, I can also set other properties to control the position, such as top, bottom, right, and left. So let me go ahead and let's set the top property to 0px. Okay, so that means that this div is going to be 0 pixels from the top. All right, go ahead and save your changes, and then Alt-Tab back to the browser and hit refresh. Okay, now look at what happened. Something strange here. First of all, we set the top for div 2 to 0, meaning that it's going to be 0 pixels from the top of the window. But notice that our div lost its width. It no longer stretches out like a normal block level element does. Okay, so when you change the position property, some of the behaviors will also change. So div 2, it's kind of hard to see, but div 2 is no longer 100% wide like the other divs. It's only wide enough to accommodate the content that's inside of it. Okay, now let's do this. Let's go back to VS Code, and we could set the right position here. Let's set it 0 pixels from the right side, so we can set the right to 0px like that. Okay, save that, and then Alt-Tab back to the browser and hit refresh. And now it's 0 from the top and 0 from the right. Okay, now we're actually going to use this in our final project, and this is why I'm showing it to you right now. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and make this be bottom, and then we'll make this one be left, just to mess around a little bit. So you can position things from the bottom, top, left, and right edges of the browser window. Save that, and then Alt-Tab back to the browser. And now it's down here, 0 pixels from the bottom and 0 pixels from the left. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this because we're going to be using it on our final project. Now I do have another lesson on other ways to set the position property, but we don't really need to do it for the purposes of this course. If you want to learn more about it, I can give you the link to my page that covers it. But I think we've got enough on our plates for this course, so we'll just leave it at that. Anyways, now you know what position absolute does, and we'll be seeing it again in the future here.